let's bring up something else that occurred in the news that has legal implications and is very, very interesting. You'll recall Jordan Peterson. When was it? It was a couple of weeks ago. Let me just bring this up so I can get the date. June 23rd. You will recall that Jordan Peterson put up a tweet on June 23rd, which is now almost 2 weeks ago, in reference to one Paige, who starred in such films as Juno, in which Paige played the role of a young girl who got pregnant at the hands of Matt Serra. Paige has since transitioned or gone through transition, not just therapy, but surgery, cosmetic, full mastectomy or mastectomy? Mastectomy. And Jordan Peterson put out a tweet, which apparently you can't view it anymore. You can't view the newsworthy element that is the tweet that led to Jordan Peterson being suspended from Twitter so long as he does not delete that tweet. And he put out a 14-minute video on YouTube in great detail explaining why he would rather die than take down that tweet. And it's a funny thing. To delete that tweet, talk about, succumbing to, caving to unethical conduct, would be a form of death for some. And I appreciate how for Peterson, the death of integrity is something of a metaphoric and almost actual form of death. To delete that tweet, which incidentally, according to Twitter's email to Peterson, would have been an admission that the tweet was either abusive, harassing, or whatever, broke the terms. To delete it would have been an admission of guilt. And I can see how that, to do something like that, to compromise your own integrity, is a form of death. When I interviewed James O'Keefe, and I asked him, I said, is there anything you regret? I asked it in the sense of, is there any particular publication that you regret, any story you ran that, in retrospect, it was wrong? He said, no. I regret one thing, he said. I regret bearing false witness to myself when I pleaded guilty to a crime that I didn't commit in order to secure a plea deal. It came back to haunt him in a great many respects. But he said, I bared false witness to myself. I violated my own integrity. And that is something that I regret to this day. Jordan Peterson, to delete the tweet in which he dead-named Paige, misgendered Paige, and as much as that term has a meaning, I don't even know how you would describe Paige, who was a pregnant woman in Juno. How you describe any of this without mangling concepts and language. For him if he were to delete that, it would be deemed to be an admission of guilt. It would be a death of his integrity, which is, at the end of the day, we're all going to die. The question is, do we die with integrity, or do we die as having compromised our own integrity? So his tweet now can no longer be viewed. And by the way, I do disagree with Peterson on the substance of this. I think he raises very good points. And I understand the points, and I even think that there is merit to the points that he raises. Go watch his video on YouTube, because he goes into detail. I say Paige is a 33-year-old adult, can do whatever Paige wants with Paige's body. Doctors do cosmetic surgery all the time. Now, typically, the cosmetic surgery is purely cosmetic and not compromising of the natural functioning of a human body. So nose jobs. I won't embarrass anybody, but I know plenty of people who've had nose jobs. And that's cosmetic. That, I don't think there's anybody out there who would say that violates the Hippocratic oath of do no harm. I don't think there's anybody out there who would say that a nose job violates the Hippocratic oath of do no harm. It's cosmetic. It's not necessary. Someone wants to do it to feel better about themselves. Maybe they have a big bump on their nose, and maybe they have a broken nose and they want to re-straighten it. Whatever. They want to feel good about the way they look. Then it becomes, there's a wide gray zone. People who tattoo themselves doesn't go through a doctor, but let's just say people who lacerate their tongue and a doctor does it. The people who want to have the lizard tongue. People who want to implant, let's just say people who want to implant cheekbones. Again, it does no harm in the sense that it does not compromise the normal functioning of a human body. Let's say, I mean, that might be the actual relevant criteria as to do no harm. Even injecting under the skin those horns or whatever, people do things to their body. It's none of my business. Even those things are easily removable and do no harm in the sense that they do not interfere with the normal functioning of the human body. But let's just say a full-grown adult wants to have a preventative mastectomy. The argument there is going to be preventative. It might have some medical purposes, reassuring the individual they won't get breast cancer later on. Okay. But then let's just say someone just wants to have the mastectomy because that's how they want to look. Now, whether or not it's criminal for any doctor to do that, there'll be a gray zone there. I think it would be criminal of a doctor to blind an individual who feels that they are a blind person from birth and need to blind their eyes. There's an actual case of this, by the way. I think that would be criminal because you're not only interfering with the natural functioning of the human body, you are utterly handicapping that body, which is a distinction with a full mastectomy for purely cosmetic purposes. But that was one heck of a tangent. So setting all that aside, Jordan Peterson's tweet removed from Twitter. He's suspended for as long as he does not delete the tweet, which would be an admission of guilt. And he says he would sooner die than do it. Put out a 15-minute video on YouTube. Great video. Watch it. Even if you disagree with it, you can see how the brain of someone who knows how to think, reason, and express himself, how it works. Well, apparently, the news of the day here is that Dave Rubin has been banned or suspended from Twitter. Sorry, there's no such thing as a ban from Twitter. It's only a permanent suspension. Dave Rubin has been suspended from Twitter for retweeting or tweeting the screen grab of Jordan Peterson's impugned tweet. And it's very interesting. I want to keep this one for my records here. Let me just get that. Okay. So Rubin had to post this to locals, where his platform that he started specifically so that people can have these free speech discussions without worrying about the arbitrary politically motivated censorship that comes with he created locals to avoid this type of political censorship. Okay, now we've got the prosecutor. I think they're starting on the substance. But anyhow, he posted this to locals because he's been suspended. No, we're not proceeding to the merits yet. Prosecutor is now talking about the next order of business, which is addressing documents that were filed by the Crown. We are now 1 hour and 20 minutes into it. They're now talking about additional documents that the Crown has provided. The prosecutor says "my friend" all the time, and I don't know if it's an Ontario thing, my friend, when referring to opposing counsel. I find nothing more patronizing than being called my friend. I find nothing more patronizing. Well, I find a lot of things more patronizing. I find it very irritating. Very, very, very saccharine, phony. My friend. No, dude. First of all, we're opposing counsel. So just call me counsel. Call me Mr. Fryhead or David. I don't even care. Just my friend. Very presumptuous. I don't have very many friends, so don't make any presumptions, prosecutor. So Rubin has been suspended. He posted this on locals. I have been suspended by Twitter for posting a screenshot of Jordan Peterson's tweet, which got he himself suspended. I don't know the context in which Dave Rubin posted the tweet. Rubin can be sassy and saucy, but it could also be, this is the tweet that got Jordan Peterson banned. Let's have a discussion. While it is unclear how I broke their terms of service, it is clear that they are breaking their fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders by letting a bunch of woke activists run the company. I hope Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter goes through so he can blow up their servers and humanity can move past this pervasive, twisted, self-imposed mental institution. In the meantime, you can find me at rubinreport.locals.com. This is not a sponsored post. The platform I created to fight big tech censorship, something we need now more than ever. And by the way, you can find me and Barnes at Viva, barneslaw.locals.com. But I just say, this is an interesting way of actually, this is memory holding. This is Orwellian memory holding. We can't see the tweet now. We don't know what the discussion is about, nor can we even have it, the discussion about the incident on the platform itself. So effectively, in enough time, the entire controversy itself is set on fire, is memory hold. Nobody even knows that it existed. And Jordan Peterson's legacy on Twitter, for those who are less interested in it, fades into the backdrop. But interesting way of making it impossible to highlight the absurdity of Twitter censorship. And although I am merely a Canadian lawyer, there is merit to the argument of a company acting against its own financial interests, if this qualifies as a matter of perspective. Rubin does make a good point. And there is legal merit to the argument. People don't really fully appreciate this, but a company has it's called a fiduciary obligation to its shareholders. I buy shares in a company. There's called reasonable expectation. But I buy shares in a company in order to make money, with the expectation that that company is going to act in a way that's going to increase shareholder value. If a company acts in a way that is contrary to the interests of the shareholders, they are violating their fiduciary, which means they're sort of inherent obligation towards their shareholders. The company is nothing more than the shares which are held by individuals. So when the directors of a company make decisions that hurt the shareholders, there's legal remedy for that. Like just imagine the directors want to think of a good example. We don't even need a hypothetical. They act in a way which they reasonably foresee and or know is going to decrease shareholder value. That gives rights and remedies to the shareholders. Now the only question here is, you know the argument. I don't need to hear someone else say it. Twitter's going to say, we're not acting against the shareholder interests. We're acting for them. In order to increase shareholder value, we need to make sure that Twitter is a safe space, a welcoming space, an accommodating space where people feel empowered, liberated, free, safe to join, to discuss freely. And Jordan Peterson's post targeting Page, making people feel uncomfortable, is itself actually going to decrease shareholder value. If we leave the Petersons here, that will decrease shareholder value. So we need to get the Petersons out of here. We need to make them say, I love Big Brother, if they want to come back. That's going to be the argument. The only reality is that true? Is it true? And is it going to hold water if ever there's a debate about it? And in reality, is it increasing or decreasing the shareholder value? Imagine Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist or psychiatrist. Hold on, let me just make sure. He's a clinical, I think, a psychologist. Google Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist, so not a psychiatrist, can't prescribe meds. Jordan Peterson, clinical psychologist, a respected and respectable thinker, blue check mark, booted from a platform for, I'll say, arbitrary or capricious application of nebulous rules. Is that good for shareholder value or bad for it? It makes me not want to buy Twitter. I do not own Twitter. Until Elon Musk expressed an interest in buying Twitter, I saw Twitter only as a necessary evil. In that it's unfortunate, but it's the place to, on the one hand, reach new people, and also on the other hand, to hear what people who I disagree with have to say. But are the sex bots out? Oh my gosh, they are. Sorry, I didn't even see them. I haven't looked at. Okay, I'll block them. I block them in as much as I see them. Miss Scusi about the sex bots, people. So the question is, Twitter is a necessary evil. Sorry, that's it. And I use it out of necessity, but it's where the discussion is. Now, is it going to be good for Twitter's business to ban the likes of Trump, of Peterson? I am actually surprised that there was not a shareholder class action lawsuit for the decision to ban Trump, because there's no one out there who can say that that was in the financial best interest of Twitter, except people who are, espousing specious or untenable arguments. It is, I believe, call me biased, an untenable position to hold that banning Trump from the platform was in Twitter's best financial interest. Now, sometimes a company would have to comply with the law, even if it's not in its best financial interest. And if Trump was inciting the erection, as we say in the industry, maybe they had to do it, even if it was bad for business. But I don't think there's any legitimate argument to say that banning Trump was necessary by law or in the best financial interests of Twitter as a company. And I'm surprised there was not a class action lawsuit for that decision, because if I own Twitter stock and they banned the most popular dude on the platform for no good, legally compelling reason, I'd be pissed. I'm just listening to what's going on here. I hear the prosecutor. His voice makes me angry because I do not believe he's a good faith individual. Twitter is not above the free exchange. No, it's definitely not. I am in Florida for an extended period of, not on vacation. I hope that Viva doesn't get banned for sharing the screen jab of Rubin's local sport. Well, I won't, because I didn't share the screenshot of Jordan Peterson's tweet. I was just, hey, I should feel fortunate I didn't get banned for retweeting it before he got banned for the tweet. But I guess it hadn't been banned. His tweet hadn't been flagged when I retweeted and engaged with it. But how long until they start penalizing people for engaging with tweets, which later on end up getting banned or suspended? Who knows? Who knows?